Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nakat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to do my May reading wrap up. I'm gonna be honest, the month of May when it comes to reading was not that great for me. I ended up falling into a pretty decent slump towards the beginning of the month and was just really struggling to figure out what I was in the mood for reading. I was picking up a lot of stuff and it just wasn't 100% working out for me. So I just feel like the month of May when it came to reading had really no structure and it was just kind of all over the place. And when you see my average rating, you will see that I didn't have the greatest time, unfortunately. But that being said, if you are new to my channel, the way that I do my monthly wrap-ups is I give some very basic stats and then I review the books from lowest rated to my highest rated. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into those basic stats. So this month I managed to read 10 books, which may initially seem somewhat impressive considering I was slumping, but if you look at the number of pages I read, it was 1,276, making it the lowest number of pages that I have read so far this year. That being said, I'm back on my audiobook game, at least to a degree, and had listened to 43.42 hours worth of audiobooks. As far as my average rating, this is where everything kind of just like completely falls apart. It was a 3.6. This is the first time all year that my average rating was below a 4-star. So definitely not happy about that. Had a few 3 stars, had my first 2-star, only had 1 star, some 4 stars, no 4.5 stars. So let's go ahead and get into the books that I read. I do want to start this video by talking about a couple of DNFs first though. So the 2 books I'm talking about, these are not books that I started here in May. They have been on my currently reading list for a while. One of them I think has been there since maybe January or February, and it is just time for me to give up on them. They are 2 nonfiction books, and it is Atomic Habits as well as The Unjust Society. When it comes to Atomic Habits, I went ahead and read the first 4 chapters, I think. There's no page number on here. What page is this? Okay, I got to page 69 in Atomic Habits. I fully intended to return to it, but at the end of the day, I just have to acknowledge the fact that I am not a self-help book girly. They are just not for me. I'm not overly interested in them. It is not a good way for me to learn. I've always been a bit of a more visual learner. I am currently in therapy, so I just feel like I don't need this book. And then when it comes to The Unjust Society, this is a book that was written in 1960. I read the first chapter of it. Really interesting because we saw how little society's behavior, especially towards minority groups, has improved since 1960, which is a little depressing. But then it started to get a little bit more into being overly historical and overly detailed with historic events, characters, all that, or not characters, real life people, I guess. And those are just not the kind of nonfictions that I am into. So both of these, no beef with them, don't really have anything negative to say about them other than the fact that they are just not the type of book that I am looking to read. And I feel like I've kind of been using these as a blockade to not start other nonfictions because I'm like, well, I've got 2 nonfictions going on, so I just want to go ahead and release myself from these 2 so that I can go ahead and start some other nonfictions that I am more interested in. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the 1 2-star that I gave this month. It was actually the last book that I ended up finishing. Did not end this month on a high note, and that is The Night Guest. I apologize, I'm not even gonna attempt to pronounce this author's name. This is a translated horror. I listened to the audiobook on the airplane, so your girl's brain maybe wasn't at 100% when listening to the story, so take my review with a grain of salt. The audiobook was only about 3 hours long. This would definitely be considered a novella. It started off really strong for me. We have this woman who is waking up every morning. She's really tired. She's really sore. Sometimes she's got like bruises on her, and she kind of goes to the doctor. She's like, I've been sleeping through the night and I don't understand why I'm so exhausted. And then one day she takes a suggestion from a friend to make sure she's tracking her steps, so she's getting enough exercise. And one night she forgets to take off her bracelet, and realizes when she wakes up that she has taken thousands of steps during the night. And she's like, where am I going and why am I going there? So great concept, very interesting, very eerie. I was like, okay, liking the writing. This is intriguing me. Then the ending happened. And obviously I'm not going to spoil it or anything like that. Don't worry about that. But I, for the life of me, could not understand how we got to that ending. I was like, why are we here? Why is this happening? What does this mean? What is the author trying to say? I just really ended up feeling confused. I felt like it was one of those twists where it is so surprising of a twist because there was nothing leading up or hinting at the fact that this is a possibility. There was a part of me that was like, did I miss something? Was I dozing on the plane? It didn't make any sense to me. And I literally put down the book and looked to my sister and was like, that was that was one of the weirdest, most unsatisfying endings that I've ever read. So I was very disappointed by the ending of this book. There was also some like animal death aspect or animal cruelty aspect to it that I personally felt was completely unnecessary. Like, I don't know why it was in there other than the fact that animal torture or death is considered, you know, very impactful in horror. But I just, as someone who really likes animals, I didn't like seeing that put in there for what I felt was like no reason. So I did end up giving this 2 stars. It unfortunately just did not work for me. The next 2 books I'm going to talk about were both 3 stars, and they were both BL mangas that I read on Hoopla. The first one is going to be Manly Appetites by Mito. This was just a kind of like office romance situation. I wouldn't really consider it a romance, more kind of a slice of life. We have this guy who is on the chubbier side, and he has this one employee who is very slim and handsome, and all the ladies love him, and he is always bringing our character food and stuff and trying to make him eat and things like that. And I don't know, like taking care of him and just being around him and being all happy. And our character is kind of like, what is going on here? Like, you're gonna give the ladies the wrong impression with giving me all this attention and stuff. For me, it was just a little bit underwhelming. I felt like the pacing of the story felt a little bit all over the place. I think there might have been like some time jumps and things like that that left me a little bit lost. The story also, I feel like, didn't really do anything in my opinion, especially since it wasn't really like a romance and it didn't really have much of a purpose in my opinion. So it wasn't terrible. It was a quick, easy read. There were a few moments that I found rather sweet. There were other moments that I found really awkward and maybe a little bit on the weird side. I do believe there's a second book and I'm just not gonna read it. So I gave it 3 stars. It's not a story or characters that I have the desire to return to. All right, up next, and I do have to read this right off of my screen, we have Dekoboko Sugar Days by Atsuko Yesen. So hopefully I pronounced all of that correctly. Another BL that I gave 3 stars. I keep trying BL, and maybe the problem is that I'm trying the free BL and then I need to just like suck it up and like spend some money on it or something. I also just have to admit that like I recently at least over the last couple of years, have been trying manga, and it maybe just isn't my favorite format of reading. Graphic novels, manga is not something I gravitate towards a lot, so that may also be the issue. This book, I have to be honest, I'm already kind of forgetting what it was about. What was this about? I guess that's why I gave it 3 stars, because it was completely forgettable. Let me think. So I think we have I remember now. So we have 2 boys that when they were younger, one of them fell into like one of those big drains, and it was like too high for him to like get on his own. And so he's like crying. He's like, help, I'm stuck in a drain. And this other boy shows up and was like, I'll help you. And he saves the other boy, thinking the other boy is a girl. And he's like, I'm saving this girl. Yes, I am. And then it turns out that the little girl is in fact a little boy. And the 2 of them grow up as friends. And one of them is kind of like more grouchy, kind of keeps to himself. He's maybe got a little bit of a complex when it comes to his height, because he's relatively short and his friend is so much taller and more popular than him. And he also has some feelings about the fact that they're getting to the age where maybe they should start dating, but he's like, I don't know if I should date a girl because I have these feelings for my friend. And it's kind of one of those friends to lovers situation. This one did have a little bit of smut in it, nothing like too crazy. I once again gave it 3 stars. I can't remember if this one was a one-off, or I think there might be a second one. I don't really have plans of continuing it again. It is just more contemporary, and so it doesn't really have a plot that I feel like moves the story forward. And I feel like since the 2 of them are kind of together now, I feel like you can just read the first one on its own and it's fine. And again, it has some sweet moments. I enjoyed the art and all that jazz, but nothing mind-blowing or special. All right, I ended up giving 2 books 3.5 stars. The first one is going to be Firefighter Dragon by Zoe Chant. This is a book that I picked up completely randomly. I was taking part in this TBR game challenge game, and one of the prompts was to read a book featuring a firefighter. And I was like, I don't have a book featuring a firefighter, so I just wanted to literally typed in the word firefighter, and this book showed up, and it was like 3 hours long or 4 hours long, an audiobook. And I was like, okay, let's go ahead and check it out. Essentially, this is about a team of firefighters. It is set Ireland, the UK, I don't know, somewhere in Europe. And essentially they are all different shifters, and one of them, the main one in this book, is a dragon shifter. So one day they are out on their job and they get a call from a lady who is like, I think there's a dragon trying to break into the barn that I'm hiding in. I don't really know what's going on because dragons aren't real. What's happening? So they go out. There is a dragon there that is trying to claim this treasure that this woman found. She's essentially an archaeologist, and she was digging around at the site because she's like, I think that this is the site of a king or something, and I want to prove it before they start building condominiums or whatever on it. And she finds this treasure, and the dragon is like, I will take that. And she said, no, I'm running away, and all the dragon's chasing me, oh my god. And essentially she has had a terrible experience with dragons. So she's like, okay, dragons are real and they're terrible because they try to kill me. And this dragon shifter who rescued her and has realized that she's his mate is like, yeah, dragons suck. Good thing I'm not one of them. So essentially it is just a romance between the 2 of them. I had a decent time with it. It was just your run-of-the-mill romance. I think considering it was just a random book that I picked up, it worked out relatively well. I really enjoyed the side characters. I decided, maybe I would continue with the series. They got other shifters, griffins, Pegasus, sea dragons, things like that. So I was like, why not? The crew seems fun. It might be a good time. Quick, easy read. Smut was decent, and it had a little bit of an exciting plot. So nothing mind-blowing, but also I had fun. And you know, sometimes that's all you can do with a book. Second 3.5 star that I gave out was for Hard Reboot, and this is by Django Wexler. This was a book that I started reading for a vlog that I have in fact scrapped. I was planning on doing a mech robot vlog featuring just like queer books that feature mech robots. However, I read this book and then tried to start a second one, and that is when my slump really hit. So I ended up scrapping that vlog, unfortunately, but I did end up reading this. Obviously, you could tell I didn't have the greatest time with it. I gave it a 3.5 star. With this book, we are following two different characters. We have Cass, and she is a researcher and she studies old code. And by old code, I mean like what we would consider like modern day and maybe even slightly advanced, but this is obviously like very futuristic, and planet Earth has essentially been abandoned and is considered a bit of a junkyard. But she gets this opportunity to go to Earth and study some of the code that is potentially still alive there. It seems like when it comes to the code and the technology on Earth, it is highly corrupted, and everything, you know, it's giving you like spam mail. That's all Earth code is good for nowadays, but she's gonna try and figure out if she can find anything there. However, before she can start her research, she has to go to this party, and at this party there are these big robot fights, and one of the fighters ends up approaching her. Her name is Z-H-I or Zai. I'm just gonna call her Z, and she kind of tricks our other character into making a very big bet on her robot. And our character is like, well, if I lose this, I can't pay that because I'm a broke researcher. But our other character, Zai or Z, is under the impression that anyone who doesn't live on Earth is just rolling in cash. Unfortunately for her, things don't go as planned, and she has found herself in a bit of a financial pickle, and actually so has our researcher. And so the two of them end up trying to work together to solve their financial issues and obviously develop a bit of a romance along the way. The beginning of this book, I would say I honestly thought that this was going to be my first 2-star of the year for the first half of this book. I think the second half of the book really started to pick up. I felt like we started to get a little bit more into the plot. I started to feel more connected to the characters. Z or Zai, her dialect didn't really work for me, so it took me a while to not be annoyed every time she opened her mouth. The story also got a little bit more intense, a little darker, so I enjoyed that aspect of it. That is why it bumped up to a 3.5 star. I started to kind of believe why these two were kind of attracted to each other, when initially I was like, why? But the beginning of the book, I think the issue is that this is a heavy sci-fi book and it's very short. So I think that I really was just spending the beginning of the book walking around with a blindfold on, just completely lost with a lot of the terminology and references that the author was making, and he started to explain those later in the book. But of course that meant at the beginning of the book I was like, what does that mean? Why do they keep saying that? And so I just felt a little lost. But like I said, I do think that this story kind of turns itself around in the second half. It was a little disappointing because the back says, I came for the giant robots and stayed for the giant freaking robots tearing each other to shreds with blades. I would say there's one fight at the beginning of the book and one fight towards the end of the book. The fighting robots beating the crap out of each other is actually a relatively small part of the story, so it didn't quite give me what I was hoping for based off of that comment on the back of the book. but you know, not a terrible time. It definitely made me realize that I need to up my sci-fi game because I was definitely lost there in the beginning, and someone who's probably more familiar with sci-fi as a whole probably would have done a little bit better than I did. All right, guys, we are moving into the 4 stars. I ended up having 4 stars this month. The first was featured in a vlog, which I did for the Squash That series readathon, and that is going to be Dark Rise by C.S. Pacat. This was a reread for me. I read this a few years ago at this point. Trust me, while I was reading it, it felt like reading it for the first time. My memory was like, I don't remember nothing about this. So this is a young adult fantasy story. In this book, we are following Will. He's one of our main characters, and he has been on the run since a group of people murdered his mother, and he has been trying to avoid him. However, at the beginning of this book, he gets captured and taken on to this ship. He's not really sure what's going on. He doesn't really know why people are chasing him. And then all of a sudden, a group of people start attacking the ship. And this group of people introduces themselves as the stewards, the protectors of the lights. While on the ship, he meets our other main character, and her name is Violet, and she is the half-sister of one of these people who have captured Will. However, Will ends up protecting her and her brother during a situation, and so she decides that she owes him a bit of her loyalty. And then she also discovers some things about her family and the role they expect her to play that make her decide that it is better for her to follow Will to the home of the stewards, and there together they start to learn about the war between dark and light, how this group of people is trying to resurrect the dark king, and the stewards are trying to prepare for that so that they can prevent darkness from overtaking the world. This book, kind of when it comes to ratings, was a little bit all over the place for me. I ended up deciding on a 4 star. I think there was definitely a point in the book where it was almost a 4.5 star, but there was some stuff towards the end of the book that I didn't love, and I remember not loving it the first time that I read it either. This is a book that has a lot of great world building in it. C.S. Pacat is someone who puts a lot of time and effort into their books, which is why you don't get one book a year. You get one every maybe 2 to 3 years. You definitely have to wait for them, but it is well worth the wait in my opinion. So world building was great. Learning about the magic system was really interesting. I loved the characters, Will and Violet's relationship, the trust that they have in each other. Both of them have kind of lost their family and found themselves alone, and they have kind of come together almost like siblings, and it's just a beautiful relationship. There is another character that Will feels this interesting connection to, and their interactions are always very addictive, and I love seeing them together. Some of the things I had issues with is sometimes I felt like maybe the story was a little bit on the slow side. In the beginning, it felt a little bit more historical than fantastical, and as someone who's not a huge fan of historical books, I think I struggled to get into the story until the fantasy elements really started to show themselves, and then I was more in it. There is also another character that Will interacts with, a kind of like noble woman of sorts, and I don't love her character. I don't love her character arc and kind of like what she goes through and the role that she plays. She also has a younger sibling that I can't stand, so they had more of a role at the end of the book, so I think that's why the story made its way up to a 4.5 and then dropped down to a 4 star again. But just based off of where the book ends, I am definitely excited to get into the second book, which has been sitting sitting patiently on my shelf for like over a year now. So very happy that I finally got around to rereading this book, and so I can continue my journey with this series. Up next, we have two books from the same series, so I'm actually just gonna talk about them together, and that is two more books in the Veronica Speedwell series. We have a Unexpected Peril and an Impossible Imposter, and I ended up giving both of these 4 stars. Obviously, I listened to both of them as an audiobook. I would say that plot-wise, I liked the Unexpected Peril a little bit more. I thought it was a little bit more interesting. We kind of have the death of a female mountaineer that seems to possibly have been murder, possibly someone who wasn't very happy about a woman being so successful in this field, or maybe just someone who wasn't very happy with certain close relationships she had with some of the higher ups in the country's government, things like that. I found that whole aspect relatively interesting. When it comes to an impossible imposter, we get to learn a little bit more about Veronica's past, because someone from her past has made a reappearance. I, to a degree, almost felt like it wasn't 100% necessary to have this aspect to her past, so I didn't absolutely love that part of the story. I will say, more than anything, I think I kind of enjoyed that this book had a lot of strong-willed women in it and also how well it set up the next book and got me excited to read the next book in the series. So hopefully I will be able to go ahead and continue this series. I'm on hold for the next book, but that being said, as always, continue to love the characters, Stoker and Veronica. All the side characters that this author writes are always wonderful, so I continue to have a great time with the series and will continue to binge it, and then when I'm done with it, I don't really know what I'll do. All right, and then the final 4-star and our second to last book, we have Icebreaker, and that is going to be by A.L. Graziati. And this is I would say it leans more YA, because they are in college, so I didn't know if it would lean more new adult, but because it doesn't have any like explicit sexual scenes, I'm going to go ahead and lean towards young adult. We are following 17-year-old Mickey, who is attending college for the first time as a freshman. He has been working his whole life towards joining the NHL. He's a hockey player. His father was a hockey player. His grandfather was a hockey player. All of them were record breakers, and he is looking to follow in their footsteps. However, he can't be drafted until he's 18, and he's one of those people who, like, I guess their birthday's like late in the year, and so he is just kind of biding his time at this college, and he kind of gets called out by his rival Jason. Is that correct? Yes, Jason, who is like, you are taking someone's spot, you're taking someone's scholarship, and you don't even need it, and I don't think you deserve to be here. So both of them are kind of competing to be the first draft, which I guess in sports, like, being the first person drafted is like means you're the best and everybody has been fighting over you. So they are for the first time on the same team, and they are having to kind of learn to work together on a team despite the fact that they are rivals and, in a way, competitors. And throughout the story, we kind of watch Mickey as he is working through his depression and anxiety. He has very severe depression and anxiety, and he is just not really able to keep a handle on it and hide it as well as he used to. The mental health representation in the story, I think, was some of the best. He is not the only one who suffers from it. Some of his teammates do. His mother suffers from depression, and he has some really great conversations with people, especially his father, which actually had me tearing up a little bit. So if you're looking for a good mental health rep book, definitely suggest this. At the same time, we kind of see him questioning if this is what he wants. Like, he was born to play hockey, and there is a part of him that loves playing hockey, but there's also a part of him that's like, I'm doing this because I don't feel like I have a choice. Like, I want to be given a choice, and then I want to choose to play hockey. Like, I feel like I would enjoy hockey more if I was just doing it because I love it and not because I feel like I have to. So those were some interesting conversations. Loved the teammates. He really started to bond with his team. He was always someone who really isolated himself. He didn't want to make friends because he was like, well, I won't be here for long. One day I'll be shipped off to some random town and I'll have to leave everything behind, so I don't want to get attached. But he really kind of opens up to them. He has like 5 sisters and he absolutely adores them, and I adore their relationship with him as well. I would actually say the weakest part of the story was his relationship with Jason. They definitely make a lot of progress with how they feel towards each other. They have a lot of important conversations and things like that. However, while I understand why they kind of moved from rivals to friends to comrades, all that jazz, sometimes I wasn't quite sure why they jumped into the whole romance thing. There was a part of me that understood why Mickey liked Jason, because Mickey was like, hey, I'm really into dudes who are into rocker bands, we're all black, have tattoos, got piercings, and that's Jason. But there was a part of me that was like, no offense, Mickey, but like, why is Jason crushing on you? You know, just based off of Nikki's behavior, their rivalry, the things that Jason has said to him. It just didn't 100% make sense to me. So I feel like the romance needed to be fleshed out a little bit more for me to really believe that these two are like head over heels for each other and potentially willing to risk their future as professional hockey players to be together. So a really good time. I definitely would check this author out before. As I always say, authors can only go up. I'm sure they continue to improve as they write more and more. All right, guys, and we are getting into our final book and the only 5-star of this month. This one was once again a book that I read in my Squash That series vlog that came out earlier this month, and that is going to be Together by Keith F. Miller Jr. This is the second book to Pretty, which I also gave 5 stars. This is a young adult contemporary series. We are following Jay and Leroy. In this book, we also get the third perspective of Will, who was a rather prominent side character in the first book. In this book, we are kind of watching as Jay and Leroy are continuing to work on their relationship with each other, with their friends, with their family. They're continuing to face a threat in their community. Leroy's family runs an organization known as the Black Diamonds. This is an organization that protects the Black community. They have brought peace to the gangs in that area, and there is someone who is trying to break that peace. And so all of our characters are having to work together to protect not just themselves, but everything around them that they have built. Oh my God, I love this series so much. I will continue to scream about it from the rooftops. It is definitely an underhyped series. I've not seen enough people reading it. Please, please read it. It is a series that has so much love and community in it. There are so many different relationships. There's a huge focus on family and friendship and community and self-growth and self-discovery. It has so many interesting relationships in it. Especially in this book, we have a lot of people who have stumbled. They have made bad decisions, and those decisions have hurt people, and they are having to own own up to that and try and fix those mistakes. There are a lot of great conversations in here. There are a lot of great themes. We continue to fight toxic masculinity. We continue to fight the need for violence in this book. We continue to fight racism and gentrification, homophobia, all of that jazz in this book. Loved all the characters, loved all the growth I saw in all of them, loved the plot, continue to love the writing, everything in this book. 10 out of 10. Please, please, please read these books, and hopefully the author puts out some more work, because I will definitely be checking it out if he does so. All right, guys, so here are all the books that I read this month. I can essentially say that May's TBR went out the window. Yeah, so hopefully June is a little bit better. I'm still definitely feeling pretty slumpy. It is very difficult for me to kind of get the energy to pick up a book and read right now, but it is Pride Month, so we gotta clock in, guys. But I would love to know what your favorite and your least favorite book of the month were. Obviously, my least favorite was The Night Guest. Yikes, no thank you. And then obviously my favorite was gonna be Together. Yay! I am like hyping up this book. I am like doing my best to be this author's like #1 cheerleader. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!